Talk Tuesday, number 100. Tech Talk Tuesday. Hi, everybody. 100 Tech Talk Tuesday. Wow. Centennial. Hey, Brad. Hey, Rodrigo. Charlie. I knew you'd be on there. Scott. Tanner. Hey, Dave. Chuck. How y'all doing, man? Thank y'all for coming on. Thank you for making it all the way to 100 with me. Yeah, I got Mitch Brown's Monster shirt on today for the Monster products. Ever want to look at some cool stuff he makes, go to monsterproducts.com. He makes that billet cylinder head that we helped design back in the day that's been finally starting to run good at NHRA, and I know you know something about it, and thank you for TTT 100. Thank you all. Hey, we'll do a Tech Talk Tuesday on the Monster Head soon. I had some stuff I wanted to share with you guys today. I noticed that, just so I'll say, thank you loud and clear, thank you guys. I just wanted to tell you guys that Jackie and I have had a pretty serious week, and if you follow me on Facebook, which obviously you look at Facebook because here we are, Facebook Live right now, that Jackie's daddy died last week, and we had his funeral and buried him on Thursday, and we had our favorite dog we ever had, Boots Bryce. He been feeling bad for about 3 weeks. And when we finished burying John, Jackie's daddy, Boots told us when we got home from the funeral, he said, you know what, I'm ready to go too. So we had to put Boots down on Friday, so it was really sad. And I noticed on here, you guys and you girls that watch this show, I noticed a common thread. We race cars, we race motorcycles, we love horsepower, we love engines, we love performance, we love Harleys, we love Suzukis, Kawasaki's, and we love dogs. We love dogs. And I was just going to tell you, I talk about horsepower every week. Horsepower. I want to tell you something that I discovered since Friday. And I knew it, but I didn't know it this good. But there is such a thing as dog power. And I wanted to tell you real quick. So Jackie and I met each other when we were teenagers, and we started going to the drag strip, and she was really young, and she knew I was selfish, very, very selfish person. She knew it, and she loved me anyway. Hey, Michael. Hey, Joe. And when I said, this is how we're going to be, let's go and try this out for about 5 years. Let's go racing. Let's see how it does. And Jackie and I were married in 1980, but we started going to the racetrack in 1973. So we've been together for a long time. And in 1980, I told her, I said, Jackie, look, we're going to go racing. If you're going with me, we're going in 100%. No children, no family, no dogs, no pets, unencumbered. No anchors, no sacrifices, no nothing. It's just going to be me and you and the team and racing. And we're going to put everything we got, all of our heart, all of our money, everything we can beg, borrow, and steal, money we could get from anywhere. We've been making payments on it our whole life. So I just wanted to share with you that in my selfish life, we won lots and lots and lots of races. And one day after teaching the drag racing school with Frank Hawley forever, I came home and realized that every time I go to school, every time I go to the race, I would see someone that could improve, but maybe didn't know how, and they might need a coach or something. So we were teaching schools, and when I was teaching the drag racing school with Frank, I learned that the first day of the school, we would learn everything, all the habits and all the opinions and all the perception everybody else had about their racing. And then the second day, we would try and get them to leave some of those habits and change over to the new style that would help them drive better and do better. And when I came home one day from the drag racing school in 1996, I said to Jackie, I think I'm ready to have a kid. Well, she fell over right on the floor. And I said, Jackie, you okay? And she said, what did you say to me? I said, I mean, we've been together since 1973 and 1996. I said, I think I'm ready to have a kid. And she said, really, why? And I said, because all I meet is people that already have habits, and I would love to meet a person that had no habits, none, zero. So we worked really hard, and it was great. It was fun. Everything was great. But we found, with the grace of good God Almighty and Jackie Bryce, we found Julie Bryce. We ended up with a kid, 1997. When Julie was 6 weeks old, we took her this big to the drag strip to the U.S. Nationals. John Myers won his last race. The late, great John Myers won his last race at Indianapolis at the U.S. Nationals in 1997. And Julie was an infant in the winner's circle. I have the pictures to show it one day. But what I found out was my life changed. I was in first place up until Julie was born. I was the most important person on the planet that I knew. And all you guys have been knowing me forever and decades know I get it, finally, okay? I didn't get it, but now I get it. I was the most important person I knew. Jackie was the second most important person I knew. As soon as Julie was born, I went from first place to third place, because I needed Jackie more than I ever needed her, and I needed Julie more than I dreamed was possible. So here comes this little girl. She goes to races with us, and we do everything right. Then we end up with a goldfish. We end up with a cat. We end up with Julie getting a little older, taking horse riding lessons. She wants a horse, so we sell our home. We buy a home with a big fenced-in area, and we bought a horse, and Julie promised to be the perfect child with the horse and learn how to do it and take care of the horse and learn a lot of responsibilities, and she was awesome. So I went from no pets really that mattered to being a horse owner, and one day Julie and Jackie went to a horse show in Perry, Georgia at the state fairgrounds, and there was this pretty girl there, Kayla. She had a trailer with horses, and out beside the trailer of horses in the shade, she had a cardboard box with puppies in it. And Julie and Jackie are walking around looking at the horses, and Julie says, "Oh my God, look at the puppies, look at the puppies." So she reaches in there, and there's one puppy in the box. All the brothers and sisters, there's one puppy in the box, and he has white feet, 4 of them. And Julie asked Kayla, "What's his name?" And she said, "His name is Boots." So Julie picks this little baby puppy up out of the box. Mama takes a picture of Julie with the little puppy and texts it to me. And Julie says, "Daddy, can I have this puppy? Please, pretty please, can I have this puppy, please?" And I said, "We don't have dogs. Dogs, no. Dogs need a lot of attention. You have to see about them all the time. They can't feed themselves. They can't take care of themselves, and he'll have to be an outside dog, and you're going to hate an outside dog." She said, "I promise I'll be good. I promise I'll take care of him. I promise." I said, "Nope, I'm sorry. Just because you want something, honey, you can't have everything you want." So Julie went to sleep on it. They came home, no puppy. She put the puppy back in the box. Kayla took the box, put it back in her horse trailer, and drove back to North Georgia, and Boots was gone. We've never had a dog. Jackie and I have never had a dog. And I know this is Tech Talk Tuesday and it's about horsepower, but I'm going to tell you real quick about dog power. All right? So, Julie writes me a letter. She's 10 years old. She writes me a perfect letter, all handwritten in pencil. And I'm reading it, and it's made me cry. She says, "Daddy, I really want Boots. I really want Boots bad. I'll do anything I can. You can sell my horse. You can sell the horse equipment. You can make a little shed out of the horse shed, and I'll put Boots in the horse shed. And I'll go out after school every day, and I'll go out and sit with Boots. And I'll even take the TV out of my room, and I'll run a drop cord out to the shed, and I'll put the TV in there and a chair, and me and Boots will sit out there and watch TV after homework. And I promise I'll take care of him." I was shaking my head. "No, we are only racers. We're going racing. I already got a horse we got to have people take care of. We got to travel all over. We're going to go all over. We can't have a dog. And the dog can't go with us because dogs just don't go everywhere." Well, I didn't know. I was a sucker. Okay, so Jackie finally says, "George, you're being very selfish. Every child has a dog. You are being selfish. We need to let Boots come to our house." I said, "Well, he lives 5 hours of here, north of Atlanta. Her birthday's coming up in July. She'll be 11. You need to go get that dog, and you need to pray they still have that dog." I get in my truck. I drive to North Georgia, and I go to Kayla's farm, and I get to meet the puppies, and Boots is still there. And I paid her. I got this little puppy, this little Australian Shepherd, cute little dog. I mean, he was cute. I knew he was cute. I put him in my pickup truck in the front seat on the towel, and we drove 4 or 5 hours south. And he got upset to his stomach. He cried and cried and cried because Kayla pulled him off of the mama, pulled him right off the mama, and handed him to me. And this little puppy cried and cried and cried. And I tried everything I could think of. And me and him got to be friends. We started playing different music on the radio. And I felt sorry for him, and I was talking to him, and I could finally get him to be quiet because I'd play a little music and talk to him. I'm driving down the road in a truck. We have to pull over the side of the interstate, and this little miniature animal is standing on the side of the road, and I'm guarding, make sure nobody runs him over or whatever. I'm taking care of this puppy. Come home. Julie's in school, and I take the puppy into my office, and I put the puppy on my desk, on my couch, and Julie comes home from school, and Jackie says, "Go in Daddy's office, he's got something for you." And first thing she said, Julie Bryce, 11 years old, her little heart sank. She said, "My daddy bought me a puppy. Oh, and I know it's not the right puppy. I know he's being sweet and trying to help me out, and he bought a puppy, and it ain't gonna replace Boots, and I'm so sad. I got a puppy, and it's not Boots." She walks in my office and looks at me, "Hey, Dad," and she glances at the couch, and there is a little furry ball on my couch, and she turns her head back away, and she said she was terrified to look because what if it wasn't Boots? Was she going to have to act like she loved it? Was she going to have to be happy? She turned around and looked, and she said, "It's Boots!" And she runs over to the puppy, and anyway, I got Jackie, I got Julie, Boots, and Boots dug into our hearts, dug into our lives, and Boots lived from 2008 to 2021, and we had to put him down. But when Julie graduated from school, went to college, Georgia Southern, Boots had to stay home. So Boots was left with us. There's Boots and me last year. Now, if that dog ain't smiling, there ain't no dog smiling. And I'm sorry I'm holding y'all up on Horsepower Tech Talk Tuesday, talking about dog power, but I noticed that you guys love dogs, and I wanted to share that story with you. So anyway, my socks, since I'm a sockologist, I got my Boots socks on. And I'm not going to talk about Boots forever, y'all. I promise I won't. I know you know how much they get into our heart, but I just wanted to share that story for a minute. I got plenty of time for us to go technical, but I wanted to share this with you, okay? All right, we're going to move on to horsepower. All right, we got a bunch of people. We got a bunch of people that have been asking about valve size, and we're going to talk about valve size. Because I am a fan of bigger valves because that's the only thing that keeps air and fuel from going in the engine. So I want the biggest valves I can get. And I want a big exhaust valve too, because what we do as a society or as a group is we get a flow bench and then we convert all of our good ideas into no matter what it costs. We want the biggest intake valve. This is a 5 1/8 bore. This is a really big bore. It's a 2.8 intake valve and a 2.08 exhaust valve. And what we'll do is you'll see this clipping clearance right here. These valves are coming towards each other at 5 or 6 degrees. They are canted, but a 5-degree cant and a 5-degree cant means that they can be really close together without clipping, because we have clipping clearance issues in most wedge heads. This is sort of a Hemi sort of wedge, but the valves are almost straight up and down. And this picture shows it, and I'll go to it later, but this is how straight up and down with the valve sitting in the pockets. Only 5 degrees. 5 degrees tilt and 5 degrees cant. All right, back to this picture. What I wanted to show you a couple things. It's got two 10mm spark plugs in it, which are really small, but this is a really big bore, and this is a really big valve. So what we did was we cheated the valve over because of the flow bench as far this way as we could, which I wish that was in the picture, but we got it cut off. I'm sorry. But you can see that we got this valve so far towards the exhaust that there's room for the top ring. And that's another story for another day. clipping clearance, very close here. So what we had to do to put this big of a valve in is we had to put a smaller exhaust valve in. And if you look real close, and I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but I have slightly unshrouded this beyond the bore line. This groove right here is where the counter bore of the sleeve goes in there, because we don't run a head gasket on this style. This is NHRA S&S engine. It's 5 1/8 bore and 3.8 stroke, and it has a 2.8 intake valve and a 2-inch 062-inch 080 exhaust valve. And I know I said that, but I'm just sharing this with you, that what we'll do, because we have a flow bench and we flow, and somebody said that you can't really learn much about the exhaust because it has 800 or 1,000 pressure behind it when you open this valve for the air to get out of the engine. So we kind of cheat the exhaust valve down, so we can allow bigger intake valves. Now, that works until you end up with so much intake flow and fuel that you can't get it all out the exhaust. So if you get this good enough, you go down from 290 degrees duration at 50 all the way down to 260 degrees of duration at 50 thou lift in order to get the timing right where you're trapping the mixture in. And then this one, your horsepower just won't go up at high RPM because this is too restrictive. So we start stacking compression on this. We open it sooner, we close it later, and we get all the way over 300 degrees at 50. So really big valve, high RPM stuff, 11,000, 10,000 RPM stuff, we end up with 260, 270 on the intake, and we end up with 300, 310 on the exhaust. I know some pro stock cars, the 500-inch stuff, I know that they're still running in the 260s, 270s duration on the intake, and they're still running over 300 degrees on the exhaust, because in a pro stock car, they put a tiny exhaust valve in, and they put a really big tiny exhaust valve in and a really big intake valve. And then they have to make up for it with duration. Now, somewhere along the line, you guys, we're going to run into a limit here, and we're going to have to learn how to do the trade-off. I'll tell you about this head. This head had the intake guide was cheated away from the cylinder wall as far as we could so that it would flow on the flow bench, so that it would have unshrouding around the short side. That's just a style. Here is the port mold. You can see this is really big. And here's the 2.8 valve. Anyway, I just wanted you to see what it looked like. And you can see how big this valve is. But this is a port mold of that giant intake valve, and you can see how we built the short side. And the flow bench taught us to unshroud over here and move the intake valve away from the cylinder wall because it let the whole valve flow. That's a thought, okay? Now, here is the piston. 5 1/8 piston, 2.8 intake valve, and the 2-inch something exhaust. This exhaust valve literally will hit the cylinder right here, because at full song, 10,000, 11,000 RPM, the valves are fluttering and shaking. And this, if it wasn't driving away from the wall by 5 degrees, this thing would be banging on the cylinder wall. But there is no margin here, no error. The top ring, we put it as high as we can, and it's not a problem over here because we moved the intake valve this way, and we got the ring all the way up against it, and that is called the B dimension. Here's the top ring. Here's the top of the piston with the gas port, little gas port drilled in right here. And here is the intake valve pocket. This number right here, the amount of material you have from the back of the ring to this intake pocket is called a B dimension whenever you order custom pistons. There are some minimums that you can get away with here, because if you got this thing sprayed the house down with a lot of nitrous, or you got it with turbos or superchargers or methanol, nitro, whatever, this side just melts right off. It can't handle the heat, because if you get too close here, the ring too close to the top of the piston, you get you put a bigger valve in here, and you got your B dimension down to 20 or 30 thou. Now you're going to be melting something. So the ring industry and the pro stock guys have learned to make these rings, instead of being 120 radial width, they'll do 100 and cut this away, and that gives us more B dimension here to the intake valve. All right, to the intake pocket, I'm sorry. Once again, you can see how big this valve is to the piston. Now, this is a picture of the head that's on Bagzilla, and this was the fastest engine we ever built, normally aspirated for a Harley street bike. This is a really big valve. This head is called a B2 head. It came from S&S with a 2200 on the intake and a 1800 on the exhaust. And what we did was we put a bigger exhaust valve in and we put a bigger intake valve in, so we had to put seats in it to get it to fit. But we went bigger here also, not just here. And you can also see, as Eric was talking about on BTU's Brotherhood last night, on Ben Strader's show, he was talking about the deck all the way to the valve job. Yes, when you pull this valve out, this deck right to the 55-degree contact angle. Now this picture is Bagzilla, and you can see that our limitation on it was where the ring touches the piston here, and the spark plug hole was already here. So the seat goes over into the spark plug hole. So we had to thread the seat and put the spark plug here. And the funniest thing I've seen is we got it running and dynoed it. And I want to also, let me add, this is a B2 head with a stock CNC port. And you can see how we had to, how much is left over when we put this big valve in. This is how much seat material is left, which is all got to be ported out. All this has to be hogged out and made a lot bigger. But I wanted to show you that the valve job is this little line, and it runs almost into the spark plug hole. And everybody's like, "Oh, that won't work. That won't work. That won't work." But in reality, y'all, this ain't a dry erase board. This is real stainless table with real Sharpies. In reality, let's bump this up a little bit. The spark plug comes in at this angle, and when you put it through the hole, and it has the electrode on it, and the piston comes in here to top dead center, and this gets close. What we found out was right here, the strap, if this spark plug was indexed with the strap towards the valve, the intake valve would open and close here and shut the spark plug. It was also bend the valve, but it would shut the spark plug. So we were running it, and it started running really bad on one cylinder, so we pulled the spark plug out, and the gap was closed on the spark plug. I turned it around and looked right here, and there was chop marks on the valve, like 20 of them. And I shined a light in the hole and opened the valve, and you could see right on the valve where it was banging on the spark plug. So it's the first time we ever had to index spark plugs to clear the intake valve. That's when you know you got a big valve in it, is when the spark plugs hit the intake valve. Or excuse me, the intake valve would close the spark plug gap, not the piston, but the intake valve. I always worked hard in my life to keep the piston from banging this thing shut, and this is the right way to gap it. Because if you put the gap over here, if you put the strap over here, now you got the piston shutting the spark plug gap. So we turned it around like we're supposed to put it 180 away from the piston dome, and had the intake valve clipping the spark plug. So going back to that picture, here's what it looks like finished. And you can see they're using the same spot right here, which is really kind of strange, but they were occupying the same location. This one, we had to put spark plug dimples here and here, because these guys right here were touching the piston dome. And some guys call this a softened chamber, but what we put in here was we bored out here and put an angle in that we put on the piston dome too. So this chamber angle ended up being like 7 or 8 degrees, and then we would make the piston fit it, and the only part that was any deep at all was this part, and then of course very little shrouding around the valves. But that's some good info to talk to you about, and I just wanted to share with you a couple things. When people say you got to put the biggest valve you can in it, well, there's some internet rules out there. I think somebody says that the efficiency is 55 bore to valve size ratio. 54 is too much. You lose efficiency. 51, you can do better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, well, that's all good. That's based on some stuff that has been proven in that person's world. But in my world, I want this to be way higher than 53. I want it to be way higher than 54. I want the biggest valve I can fit without the expense of losing rings, real estate, ring seal, compression ratio, B dimension. You can't let the ring and the valve be in the same place. You can't let the spark plug and the valve be in the same place. You can't let the intake valve and the exhaust valve be in the same place. Everybody's got to have their room, and it has to work in harmony in order for it to be able to go. Now, this one number here bases a lot of information around one measurement, which is valve size to bore ratio. That scoreboard at the end of the track, when it lights up and it's got low ET of the meat, that's when this is correct, my opinion. All right, I'm going to change back over. I want to tell y'all, Mitch Brown, congratulations to you on Steve Johnson going fast with the billet monster head. Congratulations to you for Steve running some good numbers this weekend at Norwalk, Ohio, with really, really tough conditions. Good job to NHRA for getting that race in. Good job Safety Safari making it where every time it rained and every time they prepped the track, low ET would follow Safety Safari. I wanted to say congratulations to the people on that. Also want to say out loud, Matt Smith and I aren't, good buddies. We're not going to dinner or whatever, but I respect him a lot. I respect Angie's work a lot and that whole MSR team. There's some guys on that team that are friends of mine, and they know how much I like to win. I like to win way more than I like to lose, but I am retired, and I am an interested observer of that sport, and I was very proud of Matt this weekend. He drove great. He shifted on time. He cut a great light. His bike was really fast, and he ended up running really, really quick, especially in the final 6:78. That was good. And Matt Smith's engines are available. The pieces and parts are available to others. And Steve Johnson's engine all those parts are for sale that are available to others. And that's why I'm a big fan of this project that Mitch Brown supplies heads for you. So anyway, I wanted to say thank you so much again for the love that you've given me and Jackie about her dad passing this past 7 days, and also about our beloved Boots, the only dog Jackie and I have ever owned. And Jackie's the only wife I've ever had. Julie's the only child I've ever had. And Boots is the only dog I ever had. So that makes the three of them pretty special to be onlys for me. Anyway, great love, great support. I appreciate it. I love you guys. Thank you so much. May God bless every one of y'all. Thank you all for watching. Tune in next week for Tech Talk 101 by the grace of the good Lord, and if the creek don't get this high. Thank you.